Hello and welcome to Volume 13 of the Empower Report. My name is Jason Finucan and I founded Empower Professional Services in early 2015 to provide solutions for corporations and schools as they work to overcome stigma and reduce the impact of mental illness. The Empower Report is my weekly video blog, which is available on social media and my website at empowerproservices.com. In a previous blog, I shared my issue with the word issue. In doing so, I hope to highlight the importance of the language we use when communicating about mental illness, whether at work, around family and friends, or in school. Today I'd like to take the concept a step further and share the 5 common traps to avoid when discussing mental illness. Number 1, referring to mental illness as something the person is doing rather than experiencing. This trap most commonly occurs when a person speaks of another's mental illness in various vague terms. Now, on their own, vague terms may seem innocuous, like an issue or it's difficult, etc. However, we don't say these things when referring to someone who's had a heart attack or is suffering from breast cancer. In those cases, we are clear in our word choice that, for example, Nancy has been diagnosed with breast cancer and Frank is in the hospital recovering from a heart attack. The language used makes it clear that those things happened to Nancy and Frank and aren't their fault. If we were to say Nancy is having issues with breast cancer, not only would that sound odd to most of us, but it would imply Nancy has some choice or responsibility in the matter. This opens the door to judgment, stigma, and discrimination while closing the door to empathy. Number 2, allowing feelings of awkwardness or discomfort to take the lead when discussing mental illness. We've all been there and know how difficult it can be to know what to say when someone who has just lost a loved one or has just been diagnosed with a serious illness. We often feel awkward in these situations, regardless of whether the illness is physical or mental. However, with known physical illnesses, there is an overwhelming instinct to be empathetic and to show others your empathy when placed in these uncomfortable situations. Invariably, people find a way to show they feel this empathy, and in doing so, show they are not judging. Unfortunately, this empathy often loses to the awkwardness when it comes to speaking of mental illness. The result is the person suffering is concerned about your lack of comfort when you should be concerned for them. Number 3, doing or saying nothing. This is related to trap number 2. When we are afraid of the awkwardness we feel, sometimes it's easier to simply do or say nothing when a friend or colleague suffers from a mental illness. This can feel safe, but it is in fact a dangerous trap because when everyone, or even the majority, follows this path, the result is the person suffering receives very little support. An excellent example of this is described in a previous blog that I wrote called The Get Well Card Incident. Number 4, questioning the motives or work ethic of the person suffering. Clinical depression is one of the most common and most commonly misunderstood mental illnesses. Anyone who has ever felt depressed, which is everyone, can fall into the trap of thinking that they therefore understand clinical depression. As a result, it is very easy to say, I felt depressed and was able to work through it. It wasn't fun, but I did it. Why can't he? When I initially experienced clinical depression, I frequently had to face this obstacle. It is a truly terrible thing to go through an illness that is shutting your life down and be that ill and then have to be basically fighting with others who are questioning your work ethic or motives. It can be truly devastating. Number 5, ask if a person plans to stop treatment now that they are feeling better. I have been speaking to students and corporate employees for years, sharing my experiences with bipolar disorder, in order to help others overcome stigma and reduce the impact of mental illness. During that time, I have lost count of the number of times I have been asked if I plan to stop my treatment, or if I ever thought of doing so, given I am living symptom-free. I have honestly never understood this question. Growing up, I had a friend with type 1 diabetes who had to take 2 insulin injections every single day. He seemed healthy otherwise, but even at 10 years old, I never once considered asking Patrick if he planned to stop his injections. I understood he had an illness and that this treatment was needed to live symptom-free. Now, of course, not every mental illness is so clear-cut with respect to treatment. However, in many cases, a treatment addresses a chemical imbalance that cannot otherwise be controlled. To ask this question implies that it can, in fact, be controlled somehow by the person, which brings us back to trap number 4. Falling into these traps is unfortunately very easy to do given the prevalence of stigma in our society. It can and does happen to the best intentioned of us. I have seen volunteers who dedicate all of their time towards raising awareness of mental illness and stigma fall into one or more of these traps. I've seen people who I know have a deep understanding of mental illness and zero stigma towards it fall into one of these traps. And prior to experiencing mental illness and stigma firsthand, I fell into many of these traps too. In many ways, years of direct and indirect stigma and discrimination towards mental illness, as well as a consistently negative portrayal in movies, television, news, and other pop culture, it's all set us up to fail. My challenge to you is that while it is easy to fail, it is possible to overcome and avoid these traps. The sooner we all do so, the sooner stigma will truly be a thing of the past. My purpose with Empower Professional Services and as a professional inspirational speaker is to share that understanding and help eradicate stigma in corporations and schools. If you would like to know more about how my unique lectures create a lasting impact on your employees' understanding of mental illness and stigma, I invite you to visit my website at empowerproservices.com. That's all for this edition of the Empower Report. I thank you for watching. Stay tuned for future editions of this video blog as well as new written blogs. I invite you to follow me on social media as well, where I can be found on Twitter with the handle @FinucanJason, and on LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+, and YouTube by searching for Jason Finucan. If you would like to receive notifications when new written and video blogs are posted, you can sign up for the Empower e-newsletter at empowerproservices.com. Thank you very much, and until next time, be well.